You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and the episode this week is going to be a little bit shorter than episodes in the past. I want to ease back into this podcasting thing. It's been so long, I've had that long hiatus that I want to kind of baby step my way back into, a full-blown hour-long show, or maybe even one of those obnoxiously long hour-and-a-half gab sessions, but whatever the case may be, wherever the podcast winds up, I kind of want to ease into it. So I've got a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the news. I have two news items to talk about. One I really don't have anything to say about. It's just a news article that I enjoyed reading. I just kind of wanted to bring it to light. The other is, I don't even remember what the other one is. The second one, I guess I could gab on a little bit about that. It's been major news here in Pennsylvania. I've got one piece of featured content that's going to be fairly short. I've got the usual cigar pairing that I'm doing, and then we'll talk a little bit about a discussion topic, and I'll kind of roll on my way out. So I would imagine, based on what I've got written down, I'm thinking maybe 35-40 minutes, but, we'll see how it goes, give or take. So, first things first, the political climate lately has not been good for the Second Amendment. Things have been really rough, and ammunition supplies, reloading supplies, guns, firearms, everything have been in high demand, low supply. So prices are skyrocketing. The political climate is really rocky. And as a result, something that I was really excited about a couple of months back never came to fruition, which kind of bummed me out. A couple of months back, I got an email from a friend of mine. I should say he's an acquaintance of mine. I've dealt with him on sort of a personal and professional level with StogieReview.com for cigar-related stuff. And as it turns out, this cigar retailer that I've dealt with in the past decided they want to expand their blog section of the website, and they wanted to start doing lifestyle pieces. And one of the lifestyle pieces that they wanted to do was on firearms. And I thought, this is really cool. They're contacting me. They're asking me to write an article for this page. They're willing to pay me for it, which is fantastic. There's nothing better than getting paid to do something that you enjoy. So I sat down and I wrote an article on competitive shooting. They wanted They left the topic up to me, but I sort of wanted to pitch the idea of expanding your horizons to an audience that may be very lukewarm to guns, or even very new to guns, or I'm not quite sure how to describe it. The types of people that go to a range on a bi-monthly basis and shoot, at static targets. I wanted to kind of appeal to them and broaden their horizons a little bit. And knowing that this retailer is based in Pennsylvania, I knew that, a lot of the people, at least a lot of the local people that would be reading this article, would most likely be pro-gun, unless they're coming from, the surrounding Philadelphia area. But based on the location of the shop, I felt pretty good that a firearm article would come off with a positive outlook. So that's what I did. I tackled getting into competitive shooting, and I looked at a bunch of different options: USPSA, IDPA, SAS, ICOR, just the ZSA, just a variety of different things that people could try to broaden their horizons from shooting at a square range. It was difficult because I had a maximum word count to deal with, and the maximum word count was was hovering around probably my average for a typical blog post that I do, or I shouldn't say typical, but it was, I guess it was like 1,200 words. And when you're talking about a topic such as this, it has the potential to get really big. And I think my rough draft was well over 2,000 words, so there was a lot of paring down that needed to be done, and it felt as though I was glossing over different topics, but in the end, I thought the article came out pretty good, and I was really excited to see it get published and see the reaction with the cigar retailers' viewership and things like that. But unfortunately, it never was published. I would imagine it was because of the political climate, all of this stuff going down. They didn't want to, talk about guns on their website. So that was a bit That was a bit unfortunate, but fortunately, I was already paid for the article. So even if they do delay it a few months, until things settle down, I'm okay with it. Money's already been received and spent. I bought something gun related. Actually, I think I used it to buy an order of 147 grain bullets from Black Bullet International. But it was great, and I had some money left over to do some other stuff with. So it was, I was really happy to have done that, or have the opportunity to do a paid article, because it's been quite a while since I've done one, and it's always fun doing something that you enjoy and getting paid for it. So hopefully, in a couple of weeks I'll be able to tell you about, or a couple of months I'll be able to tell you about this great article that I wrote 6 months back, and you can go check it out for yourself. In the last episode of the podcast, I talked about wanting to sell my Lee Pro 1000 press, my progressive press for 9mm, and pick up a Dillon. Just to alleviate, or just to circumvent a lot of the issues that I've heard people talk about with that press. It's still unopened in a box, sitting in the basement. But I was considering doing a swap, purchasing a Dillon and then selling the Lee to fund part of the Dillon purchase. But unfortunately, as I began looking around, some things started to pop up. I had some people recommending sticking with the Square Deal B, which was what I was looking at to begin with, and then I had a handful of people tell me, take some serious thought on purchasing a 550 instead. So I'm in the process of comparing one press to the other and doing a little bit of soul searching. Am I going to extend beyond 9mm? If I do, how far beyond 9mm am I going to go? Am I going to do 40, 223, things like this? Is it worthwhile to spend the extra money on the 550 versus the Square Deal, where I may need one caliber conversion kit? And we're not talking about a ton of money, but is the 550 going to pay for itself? Do I want manual indexing over auto indexing, based on the Square Deal and the 550, things like this? And while I'm doing this bouncing things back and forth, I decide, okay, I'm going to start looking at the prices and start shopping around. And what do you know? It turns out that Dillon is at an 8 to 12 week back order as of right now for the entire nation. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be ordering anything direct from Dillon anytime soon. I've got plenty of time to consider which press I want. But I did get a note the other day that a gun shop about an hour from here had a Dillon 550 on the shelf. I didn't call. I should have called and tried to purchase it over the phone. But at this point in time, I'm still not sold on which press I want. I kind of want the Square Deal because I don't know that I'm going to be doing much more than 9mm. Maybe at some point I get into limited and start shooting 40, but I really don't see that anytime soon. It's going to be a couple of years before that happens. I've got a really long way to go in production division before I'm happy and want to move on. So I'm still doing that bouncing back and forth. I don't know what to purchase. First up in the news this week, we have an article that comes out of Philadelphia. It's from GunSavesLives.com, and it is entitled, "PA Store Owner Defends Wife, Shoots and Kills Armed Robber Who Shot at Him." Goes on to say, the owner of a convenience store in Pennsylvania refused to be a victim when an armed man came into the store and began stealing money out of the register. The owner's wife was working at the counter when the attempted robbery took place. The owner heard his wife scream and came from the back of the store armed with a gun. The suspected armed robber fired a shot at the owner, but missed. The owner returned fire, striking the suspect once in the chest and killing him. Neither the owner nor his wife were injured. Police do not expect any charges against the store owner and are calling it a case of self-defense. There's a video that goes along with this. I'll embed it in the show notes because this is one of those videos that allows me to do that. I don't have to force you to go clicking all around in circles. But at any rate, it's a good story in all. No one was injured in terms of the store owners. Good guys not injured. Bad guys won't be doing bad things anymore. In the news, in the video itself, they mention that the robber was 19 years old. So I would imagine this is going to be followed up by news stories about how he wasn't a bad kid and, he didn't deserve to die and things like this. But the fact of the matter is he was robbing a store. He took a shot at the store owner and he paid the price. He got what was coming to him. Actions have consequences, and this is a good example of that. Fortunately, the good guys made it out okay, unscathed, if you will. Next up in the news is an article that comes from WCTV.tv. I'm not quite sure where this website comes out of. I found it in Google Reader. Over the last couple of days, there has been an absolute storm of news articles on Kathleen Kane, the new Pennsylvania Attorney General, ending the Florida loophole here in Pennsylvania. And I just sort of picked one at random because there were just so many of them, and wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on, what it really means, and just some other things that are on my mind. So a couple of months back, during the whole campaigning process, Bloomberg sunk a ton of money into Attorney General Kathleen Kane. Or at the time, she wasn't Attorney General, but she is now. You kind of get the idea. But he sunk a ton of money into Kathleen Kane, and one of her big campaign promises was that she was going to end the Florida loophole here in Pennsylvania. Or not so much her, but Bloomberg flooded the Pennsylvania market with television commercials that were touting this Florida loophole and how Kathleen Kane was going to save lives and everyone was going to be safer and all this other garbage and nonsense. And she wound up winning by a landslide, which is no surprise at all, because her opposition was basically unheard of. All of the TV time and all of the promotion was coming from Bloomberg, and it was Kathleen Kane by a landslide, from what I understand. Now, Kathleen Kane took office, and she continued with her promise she was going to end the Florida loophole. Now, I was expecting this to happen. I expected to see her start working towards this goal, but I had no idea that she'd be working towards it so fast. It was like suddenly the news reports are coming out that she's ended the Florida loophole. Now, we'll get to what the Florida loophole is, but first I want to talk a little bit about this article. It is dripping anti-gun, just propaganda, but I kind of want to get through it so that we can talk about other stuff. So, the article goes on to say, for 12 years, a Pennsylvania law has allowed residents to purchase gun permits online in Florida. That's even if they weren't Florida residents. Attorney General Kathleen Kane Friday closed the Florida gun loophole. She says it gave some people in Pennsylvania who weren't allowed to have guns the ability to obtain a concealed carry permit from Florida. She says that includes people who were either denied, found ineligible, or had gun permits revoked. The new law requires concealed carry permit holders to be a resident of Florida. We spoke with Shira Goodman from Ceasefire PA, who fought for this day. They were able to go to states like Florida that looked into different things and didn't look into the same level of background information and investigation, and then they were able to use their permits to carry concealed weapons in Pennsylvania, she said. Goodman goes on further to say that the research they conducted shows that they believe several crimes could have been avoided if the law wasn't in place. Yada, yada, yada. Basically, you get the gist of this. The rumor, or the common belief is that, okay, you apply for a Pennsylvania license to carry firearms, you get denied, no big deal, you fire up your computer and you get yourself a Florida permit, non-resident permit. It sounds like it's done in a snap, and you're circumventing Pennsylvania law, carrying a gun here. And that whole mentality makes me angry, because it's not the case at all. Here in Pennsylvania, we have a character and reputation clause, which works with our license to carry. So basically, when you apply for a license here, you go to see either the county sheriff, or you go to see, in the case of Philadelphia, the chief of police. While you're there, you have a background checks done, which looks through the Pennsylvania InstaCheck system, which queries the national InstaCheck system, and you're given a thorough background check before you're given a license. And Pennsylvania, we're a shall issue state, and you kind of go from there. However, there's this character and reputation clause where the sheriff can just deny you based on a whim on this character and reputation clause, which is undefined. So in the case of Philadelphia, people were being denied because they had parking tickets. The thought process, I guess, was, well, if you're not responsible enough to pay your parking ticket, you're not responsible enough to carry a gun. Therefore, we're going to deny you. Or if the sheriff or the county or the police chief or whoever just decided on a whim that they didn't want you to carry a gun, that was it. They would just deny you based on character and reputation. And what was happening is, in Philadelphia, I think they actually go through an interview process where before you can get your license, you have to come down to wherever you get your license in Philadelphia and conduct an interview on why you need this gun or why you should be allowed to carry this gun. And it's a whole process that really makes Philadelphia a may issue while the rest of the state is shall issue. And what was happening is people were getting denied, and in order to circumvent that denial based on character and reputation, they would apply for a Florida non-resident, which has had reciprocity with Pennsylvania. And basically, you would fill out your paperwork and send it in. Now, the difference with Florida is it's more involved. You have to send fingerprints down. You have to go through the same checks that you do in Pennsylvania. And in addition, I believe you need to have some form of gun safety course. So there's actually more to it than getting a Pennsylvania license to carry. And then once you have that non-resident permit, the reciprocity works here in Pennsylvania. There are limitations, however. The license here in Pennsylvania gives you more rights, or it affords you more privileges. For instance, I believe you can carry within 1,000 feet of a school. Without one, with a Florida non-resident, you can't. So there are definite benefits to having a resident Pennsylvania license. However, when you get put in that situation by either the county sheriff or the chief of police in Philadelphia, you have to do what you have to do. And if you're denied based on stupid things like character and reputation, and you truly believe that you should not be denied based on this character and reputation or parking tickets, you should be able to do what you need to do to get your license and circumvent that garbage that's going on in Philadelphia. So Kathleen Kane has closed this loophole. I guess she's shut down reciprocity in the sense that in order for your Florida permit to be valid in Pennsylvania, you need to be a Pennsylvania resident and you need to obtain your Pennsylvania license. So if you have a Pennsylvania resident license and you have a Florida non-resident, your permit is okay. Your Florida permit is okay. Or if you're a Florida resident and you come to Pennsylvania, you're okay. If you have a Florida non-resident and you don't have a Pennsylvania license, I guess it's null and void here, reciprocity. So it's kind of a mess. The 180 days it goes into effect, so I think it's like August or something like that, or maybe not June or something, until you get, until all this goes into effect. So hopefully something comes of it and this all changes, because there are people that are talking about Kathleen Kane overstepping her bounds. Her job is to engage in discussion to extend reciprocity, not take it away. But I'm not quite sure how that works. I haven't spent too much time looking into this. I've just kind of been angry reading all of these articles touting Kathleen Kane as the savior and how she's going to save lives, and when the only murder that I'm aware of had nothing to do. The murder suspect, he actually pled guilty. He had a Florida non-resident permit, which he received after having his Pennsylvania license revoked. However, the murder had nothing to do with the license. He came running out of his house and he shot a guy that was breaking into his car. So he was open carrying to begin with. His permit didn't apply, and regardless of how he was carrying, he murdered the other guy. I mean, I don't see how having or not having any form of license or permit would have changed the outcome of that. He murdered another person. But that's sort of the test case that they're using for this whole Florida loophole thing. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I only have one piece of featured content for you this episode, and I came across this one on Twitter. I think I was browsing through my Twitter timeline, and I saw a link from Miguel over at Gun Free Zone, which pointed back to this post from Mad Ogre, which is entitled Shooter 2.0 Females. Now, generally, I don't treat featured content like I do the news, where I read it. I sort of summarize and then make you go look at it yourself. In this case, I think it's important that I read at least a portion of it, and then we kind of build on it from there. So it goes on to say, on Facebook yesterday, a lovely young girl posted a picture of herself shooting an AR-15-22. She was proud of herself for getting out there and shooting. I think her name was Kelly. Pretty girl, cool rifle, an M&P 15-22. And being a novice shooter, she had the rifle in a classic new gun girl stance, meaning her cheek weld was directly above the rifle butt. I'd post the picture, but she pulled it down. Why did she pull it down? Was it her liberal friends who were giving her hell because she was shooting a gun? Nope. It was from shooters who dogpiled on her for her posture, and it was a dogpile. Every experienced shooter felt the need to point out how wrong she was. This was patently unnecessary. This is how we encourage new shooters to come back and pick up the rifle and try again. Why should she? Why should she choose to associate with real shooters who acted like a bunch of pricks? This is how we recruit for our team. Now, the article goes on for a couple of more paragraphs, and it builds on the story. Now, I have absolutely no background on the story. I don't know who Kelly is. I didn't see Kelly's picture. I didn't see her posture. I heard nothing of this in my timeline. Comments didn't pop up from friends. I don't know where this came from, but I can envision this unfolding because I've been around people like this, and it's really unfortunate that this is how we treat our own. In a sport that's constantly under a political magnifying glass and under constant political pressure, instead of nurturing new shooters, we have a tendency to beat up on them and push them away. I'm not saying that every shooter goes through this or every shooter acts like this, but it isn't uncommon to see this sort of behavior, and it's really stressful. When I shot my first IDPA match, I had USA experience under my belt. I was still a little uncomfortable because it was a new sport. We were doing things a little bit differently, and I went with a friend of mine who had more USPSA experience than I do. However, he's a little quirky, a little weird at times, but he's a really good guy at heart. And he was shooting IDPA with me. And if you remember a while back, I posted a blog post on damaging IDPA props, and if you break it, you bought it mentality. Well, this is a situation where during his first IDPA match, he damaged a prop, and he got hell for that. I mean, everyone was kind of dogpiling on him, telling him, oh, you damaged the prop, you should pay for it, You're this inexperienced IDPA guy, you don't know what's going on, you deliberately damaged the prop, you're USPSA coming over here. And it was enraging to see that, people were kind of piling up on him like that. Eventually, the situation was diffused, but as we're going from stage to stage to stage, I'm standing back with a video camera recording my buddy shoot, and I can hear guys behind me making fun of him, for the way he's doing this or the way he's doing that, or look at his loud Hawaiian shirt, he's not wearing the tactical vest, and it was kind of stressful. And that's not the only match that I've been to where shooters are sort of picked on. In this case, my buddy didn't hear what was going on because the guys behind me we're talking amongst themselves. But it's that type of thing where you get that group of guys that are making fun of this person, and then suddenly this person is made aware of it. It puts them in a really uncomfortable position. Why should they come back? Why should they help grow the sport? And IDPA is not the only place that I've seen this happen. You know, I've seen it happen at random IDPA matches with different people. I've seen it occasionally happen with USPSA. I've seen it just at a square range where I'm out plinking with friends, where you hear groups of people bagging on other people, and it's amazing that we have a tendency to be like this when we need as much growth as possible to expand our sport, to make it more acceptable among the common populace. But it's seeing this article from Ed Ogre, it was a little depressing to see that we're beating up on people, especially a young girl who's very proud of herself and posting pictures on Facebook, and then people are piling on. It's really sad. Hopefully, Kelly gets the support that she needs. She comes back and she sort of blows off everyone that was a prick. And I hope that she gets involved. She's happy. She enjoys herself, and she can get past this mess. Last episode, I talked about changing the format of the cigar and drink pairing a little bit. Rather than do a cigar and drink pairing, I was just going to pair it back to doing cigars by themselves, because I have a tendency to drink the same thing over and over with cigars, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of variety, as I had hoped when I started doing the cigar and drink pairing. I'm actually drinking coffee here, so rather than do the cigar and coffee pairing 90% of the time, we're just going to pair it back to the cigar. And with that said, the cigar that I'm smoking now is the Viaje Summerfest. Viaje is a boutique cigar manufacturer that has a tendency to do small batch runs. They'll do seasonal releases. They do, small little limited runs, and they do a lot of them. Some cigar smokers really dislike this whole process. It's too fast-paced. It's too clicky. It's too... what's the other word I'm looking for? There's too much of a fad associated with it. So some people sort of turn their backs on brands like Viaje because they do too much fast-paced little stuff that most people can't get their hands on. Other people love it. They flock to it. They seek out the new releases, and it becomes fun for them. Me, I'm sort of in the middle. I really don't care one way or the other, because Viaje is a brand that I can't get locally. It's just something that has never been available to me close to home, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to run out and try to find all of these little releases when I know that they're nowhere near my home. I've got to travel an hour down to Philadelphia and Holtz to find any of the Viaje releases, and since I avoid going down there as much as possible, Holtz is just not an option, so I just won't go. But at any rate, the Summerfest, I believe, is last year's release, or last summer's release. I'm terribly behind on this stuff, and Mike over at Buckhead sent me some cigars to talk about during the podcast. This one has just been sitting for a couple of months, and chances of you finding this cigar are very slim, but they are out there. There is a chance that you might be able to find them. So, with that said, I thought, okay, we'll smoke it. We'll talk a little bit about it. And for you thrill seekers that want to go find a really limited edition cigar that may be extinct, have at it. So, when you think of summer, or at least when I think of summer, I think of standing around a grill in the heat, drinking an ice cold light beer. I mean, ice cold, like ice chips floating inside of it. Something like Yingling Light Lager or Coors Light or Bud Light or something like that. Those light beers in the summer are blissful when they're ice cold. We're talking like ice particles floating in them. They're just fantastic in the heat. And I always associate summer things like cigars and beers with being lighter or milder. So going into this, I was expecting the Viaje Summerfest to be a bit mild, and it met my expectation in that sense. It's medium bodied, it's easy on the palate, it's got very light and sort of dainty sort of flavors that go along with it. It's not overwhelming. This is something that I think would be fantastic with a very light beer in the summer, in the heat, standing around the grill with my big long flipper spatula thing, flipping hamburgers, watching the fire come up out of the grill, from the grease splatter. Thinking about that situation with this cigar puts a smile on my face. It makes me happy, and You know, it's those memories and thoughts that go along with the cigar that make it more than it is and make it really enjoyable. The flavors are kind of mild. It's easy to enjoy. I don't think that you need to be a seasoned cigar smoker to pick this up and be able to pick out the different nuances. I just think it's good all by itself. And it's not something that, you know, you need to be an enthusiast or an aficionado to appreciate. It's just a good, solid cigar. I don't know what the price point is. Again, I really didn't do much research because of how old it is. But on a whim, if you want to try to get this, my suggestion would be to try Buckhead Cigar, Mike over at Buckhead. You can pick up the phone and give him a call at 404-844-0400. Tell him that you're looking for the Viaje Summerfest release. Chances of him having it are slim at this point because, again, of how old it is. But, you know, there is a very slight possibility. I would start with Mike and then go from there. Mike is a good friend of mine. I've met him a variety of times at cigar trade shows. Mike is a great guy. He's a big gun enthusiast as well. So by supporting Mike and purchasing cigars through Buckhead, you're also supporting, you know, a big gun guy as well. So pick up the phone. Call my preferred retailer, Mike, see if he's got the cigars, and place an order. He also has a website, askthecigarguys.com. It is, basically, it's just a retail listing of some of the cigars that he has on special or that are new and that he's featuring. So if you're looking just to see what he's got and look at pricing, head over to Ask the Cigar Guys. Check out what he's got listed. He's also on Twitter and Facebook as Buckhead Cigar. And that is your little bit longer than I anticipated cigar recommendation for the week. The discussion topic of this week's episode revolves around grip strength. Now, I don't know a lot about it, but it's something that I decided to get into recently. One of the things that I think I have trouble with when shooting is applying enough force to the grip of my gun. If you equate how much force I exert with a handshake, you know, the way you shake a hand with a child is very light and gentle. You add a little bit of firmness when you shake the hand of a woman, and, you know, you add much more strength when shaking the hand of an adult male. The way I grip a gun, I guess, is best compared to the way I shake a woman's hand. You know, I don't grab the gun really tight. I hold on to it firmly enough that it's not going to come out of my hand or anything during recoil, but I could be exerting a lot more force on the gun. And one of the recommendations that I see from a lot of people is that you should be exerting as much force as possible on the gun without actually trembling. And you know, you get to that point where you tremble and then you back off a little bit. And that's as much force as you should be applying to the gun. And I'm not doing that at all. So what I thought I could do to improve this was to play a little mental trickery and sort of get myself to do it subconsciously. So I started looking into using hand grippers to increase my grip strength. And I thought, by virtue of increasing my grip strength, it would simply translate to the gun, you know, because I'd be training with grip trainers, or grip strengtheners, or hand grippers, you know, whatever the technical term is for them. But I wasn't quite sure where to go for these hand grippers, because when I was a kid, I used to have this old set of Hulkamania Hulk Hogan exercise kit. You know, like, Hulk Hogan was my hero back then. Loved wrestling, watched it constantly, and when Hulk Hogan came out with the exercise kit, it was like, I gotta have this. You know, blue dumbbells filled with, like, plaster of Paris, jump rope, and this little hand gripper, which was, it was just a metal spring with two plastic handles, and you'd click that thing all day long. It was so light that you'd have to do 100 reps before you got tired. So whenever I think of hand grippers, those old child's hand grippers came to mind, you know, with how easy they were. And I thought, well, how is something like that going to improve my grip? I'm going to have to do hundreds of repetitions to see anything out of them. You know, when you go to a sporting goods store and you pick up the hand grippers that's, you know, that the sporting goods store carries, most of them are very light. You know, they're 30 pounds, 40 pounds, and it doesn't take much force to close them. Actually, if you pick them up, you can close most of them with your thumb and two fingers. You know, there really isn't a whole lot to them. Well, that all changed when I was introduced to the Captains of Crush hand grippers, which are much more substantial. They are the same, metal spring that creates tension, but the grips are what feel like aluminum, and they have a lot of different weight ratings. They start with a Sport, which I think is 60 pounds. They have a Trainer, which is 100 pounds, which is actually what I wound up purchasing, and then they have a number 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. I don't remember how high the numbers go. I don't remember whether it's a 3 or a 4. But the heaviest ones are up over 350 pounds. They require over 350 pounds of grip strength to close them. And I was reading, I don't remember whether it was Lee or Ron from When the Balloon Goes Up. They had mentioned causing some damage to their forearm by leapfrogging or going too high on the grippers. So instead of going with the number 1 at 100 and whatever pounds it is, I decided to go with the Trainer and build up from there. They're about $20 for a single gripper, and they have tremendous build quality. I mean, even as a kid, those plastic things, they were indestructible. That Hulk Hogan hand gripper I had when I was a kid lasted far longer than every other piece of that workout set. The dumbbells cracked and fell apart, the jump rope got lost, but that hand gripper just stuck around. You could beat on it, drop it, step on it, kick it. It wouldn't die. And the same goes for a lot of the hand grippers at sporting goods stores. I mean, it's just not an item that gets beat up really bad or shows its wear. So I wasn't expecting poor build quality out of a hand gripper, but the Captains of Crush gripper actually impressed me. The aluminum handle has a lot of knurling on it, which is kind of I'll talk about the downside of that later, but they feel nice and heavy. They feel like a good quality product, and they actually take some strength to close. They're not particularly easy to operate, especially when you're doing 3 sets of 10. You wind up getting pretty tired by that 3rd set. You're trembling, you're really pushing hard, especially on my weak hand. These grippers, they take a lot of force. But the thought process behind using this hand gripper was that eventually I'd get to the point where I would just instinctively apply that much pressure to the grip of the gun when I was shooting, and I wouldn't have to think about it. It would just sort of come natural. At least that was the thought process. I started using these maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was tough work. I mean, with my strong hand, it's not a big deal to close the gripper. I can do it numerous times before I start to get tired. But again, it's when you start doing multiple sets and repetitions that become more and more of a challenge. Now, had I got the number 1 gripper at over 100 pounds, I don't think I would have been able to close it or do much with it with my weak hand. It takes significant force, and my weak hand is just not strong enough, or my support hand just isn't strong enough, I don't think, to close that 100+ pound gripper, that number 1. So I'm glad I started with the Trainer. Unfortunately, after using them for a week, I had to stop using them. Actually, I didn't have to stop. I could have continued using them with my weak hand, but the thought didn't even cross my mind. I was coming out of work one day, and I was carrying a bunch of stuff. I reached in my pocket, fished around, I hit the key fob button, unlocked my doors. I opened the rear door of my car, and I started loading all the stuff that I was carrying out. And I was carrying architectural prints, a bag full of papers, and some other stuff that I was taking home with me so that I could work from home the following day. It was windy out, and I had one of those momentary lapses where my mind just kind of stalled, but my body kept going. So I reached in front of me, across my body, I grabbed the door, and I started closing it. I don't know whether wind may have pushed the door shut faster, but for whatever reason, as I was closing the door, I thought to myself, I might be forgetting something. I should check what I just put in the car, but my body kept going. And when I closed the door, I didn't pull my hand out of there. My mind was still telling me I should check to see what was in the car. And my finger got pinched in the door. I actually got slammed, and it hurt pretty bad. I pulled my finger out of the door, and I looked at it, and it hurt. And I could see little droplets of blood forming around the cuticle. I was like, wow, that hurts. I shake my hand a little bit. I look at it again, and that's when I started feeling a pulse in my finger, and it started bleeding a lot. Now, at the time, I didn't have a first aid kit in my car, so I've got blood running down my hand, I'm dripping. I got to get back into the building, I get it cleaned up and all that. And for a solid week, it was very difficult for me to close my hand. And actually, the pressure on my finger didn't go down for a few days. But even a week later, I had trouble completely making a fist. So I didn't touch the gripper. Actually, I did touch the gripper once. I posted what happened on Facebook, and Kerry from the Angry Pig shooting team made a comment about how if I couldn't grip the gun, he'd be able to beat me at the next match. So, of course, I thought, well, I could power through this. I grabbed the gripper to see if I could close it with, my dead finger that's all bruised and stuff. And I made it worse. the throbbing like doubled, and I started bleeding through the bandage. So I didn't try to do any gripping after that. So it was maybe a week and a half that I didn't touch the grippers until I picked them up again, and I've been using them again recently, and I really like them. It's more of a challenge than I thought it would be to close the gripper, especially to do multiple sets, and I'm really happy with them. The only complaint that I have is now that I have a desk job, I don't have any calluses on my fingers, so I've got these delicate little hands these days, and the knurling is actually really rough on the grippers, and it becomes kind of painful after a few reps. When you see, it's the gripper itself, if you were to not do like full extension, like opening and closing my hand halfway, it doesn't hurt at all. I'm trying to get full range of motion out of the gripper, so when I close it, I try to open my hand up as much as possible. I'm almost letting go of the gripper. At that point, it's sliding around in my hands a little bit, so when I tension back down on it, my fingers are sliding over top of the knurling. That's where it hurts. So if I were to just kind of do this quick little half hand thing, it wouldn't be an issue. It's trying to get that full range of motion that makes my fingers sore from moving around on the knurling. Aside from that, these things are fantastic. I'm going to be training with these for a little while. When these become too easy, when they get too easy for me, I'm going to go up to the number one gripper. I don't know that I want necessarily to go through the half sizes. At $20 a piece, these aren't exactly cheap. So I kind of would like to go from the trainer to the number one, and then use the number one long enough that I can go to the number two. But it may be too much of a jump. I may need to go up each step of the way. Whatever the case, I think these are a fantastic tool, and I have yet to see what they're going to do for my grip because of, that delay and when I started using them, and then injuring my finger, not being able to close my hand. So, while it's been a little while since I've had them, I really haven't had that consistent use to determine whether or not they're helping my grip when shooting. So, I think they're a great tool. If you're looking to improve grip strength, head over to Amazon and do a search for Captains of Crush. I would recommend starting out with the lower numbers. If you've never really done any grip training, I would consider the Sport. It's 60 pounds. However, it may be too light for you. So I think a good starting place is the trainer. It's 100 pounds. It's not as easy as it sounds. If you think, oh, it's 100 pounds, it's not going to be an issue at all. I think you'll find it to be quite challenging, but start with the trainer so you don't hurt yourself, and then go from there. But Captains of Crush hand grippers are something that I definitely recommend for improving grip strength when shooting. Well, it's about time to end the podcast, but before I do that, I want to thank you for listening, watching, downloading, subscribing, commenting, iTunes reviews, all of that stuff. It means a great deal to me, and I appreciate that tremendously. Thank you for all the support. I hope to see you again next episode for episode 59 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of Walt NPA. Before you sort of close everything down and walk away from the computer, do yourself a favor, head over to the Gun Rights Radio Network and check out some of the other podcasts that are available. Some of my favorites include the Gun Dudes, the Politics and Guns podcast, the Gun... Did I say Gun Dudes? if I did, they're worth recommending twice. Gunfighter Cast is no longer on the Gun Rights Radio Network. However, it's still a show that I recommend. It's a show that I enjoy quite a bit. They're on, I forget what Ken Blanchard's new media venture is entitled, but they're working with Ken Blanchard. But on the Gun Rights Radio front, head over to Gun Rights Radio, check out all the podcasts, give them a listen, and spread the love a little bit. So again, thanks for watching/listening, and I will catch you next time.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.